Hey, what's up, DS3TV? I can see you haven't subscribed to the channel. It's kind of weird. You should subscribe. I mean, we got some good content here. And also, go to the Twitch that's in the link down in the description. Link is probably right here under me. And yeah, should do all of that. And yeah, please subscribe. Get to see me have hot sauce that I don't really want to have when we get to 10,000. So subscribe. What is up, DS3TV? We are back for another video. This one is going to be the history summarized of the great Ziggurat of Ur. And this should be a really good video. It's about Aristocrats and production, so this should be a really good video. Also, yeah, subscribe to my, when I say subscribe, well, yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also like and comment on the video, comment what you want me to react to next. Because I am taking reaction recommendations, and also I will, of course, take them if they're not I'll do them if they're not going to copyright strike. Yeah, definitely one that's off limits is like CDP Gray or whatever. That's just one that's really off limits because he's really trigger happy and doesn't want anybody to react to his videos, which is, I think, is weird, but we're not gonna get into that. Or Geography Now, they're off limits too. But yeah, feel free to comment down below what any videos that you would like me to react to. And yeah, let's get into the video and play.
With its gods? This is a deceptively simple question that has sparked thousands of philosophies, firestorms, and a fair few holy wars over the millennia. The answer is not consistent between or even within cultures, but everybody has their own idea.
That's the earliest painting of Christ. That's interesting.
For what role a god or gods should play in the mortal world. Whether that's on an imperceptibly vast scale or deeply ingrained in day-to-day life, whether that god has a wide theological purview or is focused on being the singular patron for a select group of people. There's an uncountably infinite variety to the experiences people have with the concept of divinity. But surely there must have been a time when this question had a simple answer, right? Before the global exchange of culture presented us with hundreds of misaligned or outright incompatible concepts for our place in the world and potential worlds beyond, maybe if we wind the clock back to the earliest days of organized civilization, when the first cities rose above the floodplains of Mesopotamia, we might find a simpler time with a clearer answer. But that, dear viewer, is also a deceptively...
I'm thinking, yeah, that's probably never gonna happen.
Simple notion, because if you've poked your head around the beautiful mess of a tapestry that is human history, you'll know that is not at all how these things go. So bearing in mind that we can never find the answer to how cultures FaceTime their gods, we can look into the Sumerian Bronze Age to perhaps arrive at an answer. And that line of questioning takes us to the grandest physical remnant of their religion, the Ziggurat, a massive temple composed of layered terraces rising to a single point and towering over everything else in the city. The name comes from the Akkadian word for pinnacle or high place and looks like a man-made mountain sprung right out of a dense urban environment. Now, the historical development of these buildings was a roughly 3,000-year process, reaching back from the earliest cities in human history and later becoming a key architectural presence across Mesopotamia. But to keep us focused, we're going to zoom into the greatest surviving ziggurat at the city of Ur. So, to investigate the question of how Mesopotamian ziggurats brought them closer to their gods and see what that tells us about their society at large, let's do some history. The OG ziggurat in Mesopotamia is likely the Anu ziggurat in one of the earliest cities, Uruk. How old it is may depend on which chronology system you subscribe to, because historical dates before the 1500s BC lack solid time.
Yeah, ancient Mesopotamian time is whack. Before the 1500 BC, we don't have enough solid time points to make a clear calendar, so the chronologically is all on a relative scale. Pick your poison. And calendar, ultra short, medium, middle, long. I mean, that's kind of crazy that this spread is so great, it's so wild of the years that it could be.
time points we can definitively anchor to, so scholars operate on one of 5 distinct time scales with a spread of 150 years between the ultra-low and long chronologies. So bear in mind that every date I give in this video is wrong, and I'm not sorry because it's not my fault. Now, sometime in the high 3000s BC, Uruk built a raised platform out of mud bricks in the city to hold a shrine, and by the late 3000s BC they had added the White Temple on top as a more permanent fixture. Each work would have taken 1,000 laborers several years to build, but the effect is striking as the Ziggurat raises the temple above the sightline of the city walls, making this admittedly modest 2-story religious site into the defining landmark of the city, announcing not just their majesty and skill, but also their piety. And this mound structure became the go-to for Near Eastern architecture, later appearing in other Mesopotamian cities over the next several centuries, as well as seeing use as burial grounds over in Egypt. These trapezoidy-looking mastaba tombs served as personal funerary ziggurats for the very first Egyptian kings from the turn.
Okay, so it said mastaba, that means stone bench, translated from Egyptian plegit, or eternal house. Okay.
From the 3rd millennium into the 2000s BC. King Djoser stacked them up in a step pyramid, and later kings smoothed the sides into the pyramids we recognize today. But that key idea of stacking up the platforms will be a big deal later on. Back in Mesopotamia, these ziggurats weren't reserved for dead royals, but instead served as a sanctuary for a patron deity's statue, and thus was their earthly dwelling. And not just anybody can roll up to a divine residence, so the shrine atop a ziggurat was largely reserved for royalty and the high priesthood. These were not spaces of public worship that people gathered on, rather people conglomerated below in the area and courtyards surrounding the ziggurat for big festivals or holy days. No randos on the big bricky trapezoid. Now, after a millennium of early ziggurat building in Mesopotamia, the
randos, to be fair. As far as we can observe, early period ziggurats were all one terrace high, the pure distilled essence of trapezoid. Then the 3rd dynasty of Ur said, let's make these like way taller and just load up the terraces. Wait, that's like literally absolute layer of cake like a ziggurat. Absolute layer cake of a ziggurat. Sorry. But yeah, that's honestly, I mean, it's kind of crazy that they did basically like build something that tall and like that, like, you know, that vast and tall at the time.
Architecture gets serious during the 3rd dynasty of Ur with far more and far bigger structures. For the absolute bare minimum amount of context I can give without diverting completely from my stated goal of gushing about pretty buildings, early Sumerian history was a game of city-states, with independent cities interacting via the network of waterways between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Around 2300 BC, King Sargon swept in from the north to conquer the whole of Mesopotamia and establish the Akkadian Empire. A century later, that dynasty collapsed from a mix of factors, but the historical record pins the blame on the Gutian people from the mountains in the east. Whomsoever the exact culprit may have been, the land was loosely ruled by the Gutians until the Sumerian restoration of 2112, according to the middle chronology, so give or take 50 years. After a final victory by Utu-Hagal against the Gutian king, as recounted in later Sumerian poetry, King Ur-Nammu re-established a royal dynasty.
Wait, what just happened? According to the Babylon Chronicles, kingship has from... Wait a second.
According to the middle chronology, so give or take 50 years. After a final victory by Utu-Hagal against the Gutians.
Passed from Guti to Uruk, because the Gutians sacrificed a boiled fish incorrectly, and then passed it to Ur. This is real, look it up. That is insane. Wait, so they got mad? So they got mad because they sacrificed a boiled fish incorrectly. That is why the kingship passed. That is so bad. Like, imagine you just lost being a king because of, you know, your ancestors boiled a fish incorrectly.
King, as recounted in later Sumerian poetry, King Ur-Nammu re-established a royal dynasty in Ur, now with imperial control of Lower Mesopotamia, and all of it later on. Politically, this threw back to the days of the Akkadian Empire, but culturally it was a return to the Sumerian language's primacy in this multilingual civilization. And socially, this 3rd dynasty of Ur innovated in their own right by going absolutely insano mode in coordinating the state and the economy. The Ur III period, as it's known by historians, came onto the scene with the most robust system of social organization the world had ever seen, on a scale and thoroughness that few pre-modern civilizations could match. Every worker's production and payment was tracked and logged by an army of scribes with records collated every month into
I always remember hearing that, like, a lot of, like, like a lot of the stone tablets that we have and like have full pictures of is just like accounting, basically. Like it's just records of like payments and stuff like that because it was a trading. For the most part, it was a lot of trading societies, but then also you had to get into a point where it was currency. So yeah.
Master list of input and output, and everyone's surplus or deficits carried year to year. They had to build an entire treasury city at Pujrishdagan just to manage all the inflows and outflows of goods. The kings and Ur delegated authority to provincial governors, so each city still had autonomy, but everyone operated on the same economic system, and the whole bureaucracy was
We're not helpfully centralized on the kings of Ur, but we are hella standard. We are hella standardized. That's for sure. Good for business, and limited room for a catastrophic royal overreach.
To the same scribal standard. Likewise, the weight of currencies was standardized across the empire, so everyone's shekels and mina matched up, and every city followed the same legal.
That's pretty good. So it was basically like how it is now with like the U.S. and the euro. U.S. dollar and the euro is usually, I mean, it's usually around the same. Sometimes one is a little more than the other, but usually they're around the same, or sometimes exactly the same, depending on the day that you look.
Legal framework 3 centuries before Hammurabi's famous law code showed up. Ur-nammu and his son Shulgi presided over one of the most dramatic leaps in human organization in ancient history, so compared against all of that, the otherwise astonishing effort of raising massive ziggurats in every major city almost seems casual. Of course, casual this was not, because the Great Ziggurat of Ur is Mesopotamia's architectural masterwork. Innovating from earlier one-layer designs, this ziggurat rises in 3 stacked terraces with a shrine for the moon god Nana at the top, and was built entirely of mud brick with an outer layer of sturdy fired bricks, likely painted and possibly glazed. 3 processional staircases rise to the first terrace, meeting in the middle and continuing up to the shrine. The play of straight lines and diagonals let the structure feel massive while also conveying a clear upward movement with a literal arrow pointing up. The builders also used an optical trick called entasis, where every major surface on the ziggurat is slightly curved outward to sell the image of sturdiness. This was most famously used 1500 years later in the Athenian Parthenon, but Sumer got to it first. And finally, there's a pleasing balance between the rigid geometric buttressing in the brickwork and the natural greenery adorning each terrace. The combined effect is a structure
and
that
doesn't even look. It doesn't look curved, but like if you can tell, it probably does have a slight curve in it if you like were to see it in real life, right?
unifies the divine scale with the human scale. It's a full-on mountain inside of a city that elevates the sacred space above the rest of the world, but it's perfectly traversable, bringing a king or high priest up to a convergence point with divinity. The terraces taper upward to the very top where the priesthood and royals ascend, making their interaction with the gods the focal point of the whole structure, and by extension, the whole city. Now, various theories abound for what exactly happened in the shrine, but one especially saucy notion recounted by Herodotus claims it held a sacred bedchamber for a divine marriage ceremony between the deity and the city, enthusiastically larped by their metaphorical stand-ins, the high priestess and the king. Is that true? Well, it is Herodotus, but there is also a basis for it, and if we clean up that image a little bit, it points us towards a very personal relationship between the living semi-divine king and the deities above, facilitated by a monumental building effort and a powerful theocratic administration. Rising above the flat floodplains of Mesopotamia, the
first level facade and front staircase were rebuilt by Saddam Hussein in the 80s. Yeah. Proving dictator chic is more than Roman columns and marble. Anything can be repurposed as an emblem of imperial power. Some people would say that Saddam Hussein was like a socialist, but he really wasn't. I'm not gonna say he wasn't. He was in certain respects when it came to his people, but but yeah, I mean, hey, it's fine. We'll get into that in another video because I know I'm probably gonna watch a video at some point on it, right? Or I just might make a video on it one day. You can like if you want that video too, honestly. So, like and comment if you actually want that video. But to learn more about him, but actually that just made me think of the Saddam hole actually. But yeah, I mean, just because just because like when it comes to like Middle Eastern who the West considers a dictator doesn't always mean uh, that they don't like their old counterparts. That's actually what most dictators like. Uh, is the it's to go back to like what they originally were. Uh, like even like I would say like Hitler went back to uh, Hitler went back to, like he wanted a lot of what was it, like Roman things, right? Like he wanted like a lot of Roman and like because he didn't value anything that was new or like progressive. So it just depends. But usually most most dictators dictators are dictators because they're not progressive. But I'm just gonna say this: literacy rate did go up when Saddam Hussein was first in power.
Ziggurat like the one at Ur announces the city's presence and the living greatness of the king across vast distances. It's a truly spectacular feat and a testament to the organizational power of Ur-3 in addition to their artistic chops. Though the dynasty of ur-nammu and his son Shulgi wouldn't stay in charge of Mesopotamia for more than a century, this architecture so emblematic of their reign continued to shape the Sumerian religious experience. So, how did the kings of Ur interact with their gods? With an absolute assload of bricks. And maybe a mop. It's fine. Thank you for watching. That last line is going into the...
That was a really good video. So yeah. Talk to you guys in the next one. And yeah, subscribe to the channel. Also comment what videos you want me to react to next. And yeah, talk to you guys in the next one. And peace.